Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
It's a mature point. That's something that I'm sure you've grown into. Again, it's very important. And again, I go back to me being blessed by working for or with or having friends that really know what they're doing, and that I could just sit back and learn from and so on. And I'm learning today, really am. Those are things I love to. I have a story that went to TABC probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. I'm with Jeff, and we're sitting and watching, and we see Joe Lombard from Canyon. He's still coaching, and I have no idea who's speaking, but he's got his whole staff. There probably were 10 or 15 coaches there with him, from his middle school coaches, the whole deal. And man, those pencils and pens were smoking. They're writing down every word. And whoever was speaking was just talking about some sort of really, simple drill, and so on. And Jeff and I saw Joe after, and we knew Joe from, when we were out there, and we said, Coach, man, you've got 100 drills on teaching help side or whatever it was. And he said, yeah, Tony, but that drill will be good. And that drill will be good for our 7th grade B team. I mean, he had seriously, and that just got all over me, as in sunk
It's humbling
in,
right there.
I mean, it's incredible. And that shows why Joe Lombard is Joe Lombard, and, so that, the learning process, and Joe was probably 2 or 3 years from retiring at that point. I mean, another story.
JD Mayo comes to mind. He'll be at the TABC next year, and he'll have his yellow notepad out in the front row. And you're talking about a growth mindset. I think, but if we're not careful, we can have a fixed mindset really quick, really easily, and we can be listening to a speaker or reading something, seeing something, and thinking that doesn't work with how I play. I don't need to listen to this, or I don't need to tune in, or I've got this covered. Or like Joe Lombard, you've got 1,300 wins and so many state championships. You've got this, man. But I think that growth mindset, and this, I just told my players this the other day, because humility is one of our standards. I think a growth mindset shows great humility. It shows that we don't know everything, and that we can learn from everybody that we talk to. And so I love that you shared that, and the way that you felt when you watched that. I felt that so many times being there when somebody's talking about zone offense, and I feel myself starting to just fade out and get on my phone and think about where's lunch, because against a 2-3, we're just going to get dangerous and shoot a 3 even quicker than in man against man. But you know what? I got to be humble.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that is very true. When I first went to Clarion, we had a couple of Dunbar kids when Coach Hughes was still there, Coach Hughes Sr., and they were, the real powerful Dunbar that, like, we all remember at that point. And so I'm out recruiting or something, and I remember I went to Denton Ryan, and Dunbar was playing Denton Ryan. We were recruiting, what's the kid, Lance? Anyway, he was a good player for him. And we had a couple of Dunbar kids on our team, and I see Coach Hughes in the very top of, by himself. I go up there kind of respectively, walking slow, didn't want to, and go up there, and I said, Coach, and it was a JV game before the varsity. and, we were talking a little bit, talking about the guys that I had and the kid that we were looking at and so on, and I said, "Coach, what you doing?" He goes, "Well, coach, I started watching this game, and I love the way they rotate on their press. And I think it's, this is Robert Hughes at watching a JV game." And I remember it was at Christmas time, and I remember thinking, what is Robert Hughes doing at a JV game at Christmas time, taking notes and such? And again, it just kind of got all over me about, dude, you got to get better. I mean, you got to be more intentional. You got to be more humble. So yeah, I love that.
How do you keep that? How do you keep that, coach? Because you're giving a few examples of when it clicked for you or you saw it, but how do you stay at the level that those guys are, for 37 years? How do you do that?
Well, for one thing, I'm not near that level.
I get that, but you're recognizing it, like you've seen it, you realize it.
Well, because I want to be. I want to be at that level. As we get older, our body fades. My mind is still, I can't go out there and demonstrate it much anymore, and such, but I sure have an idea of what I want to see,
Yeah.
so I want to be as good as I can be, to the point of where I'm seeing also the big picture. We'll go back to the forest and the tree deal. I've got to see when it's time to back up and back off and so on. And my wife does a really good job. My wife came from a non-athletic background. When she married me, she kind of got thrown in the deep end. God bless her. I'd come home, Matt, and I'd be upset about kids not playing hard, not wanting to be the best. And she goes, "Well, or Tony, why do you think they?" And now she's been a teacher for 37 years. She teaches kindergarten and first grade, and she goes, "Why do you think they all want to be and a great player and so on?" She goes, "I don't think they all want to be. Some of them just kind of enjoy the game, and some of them just kind of
Um,
want to be a part of the team. Some of them,
yeah.
or have a lot of other things going on in their lives and such that they might be a great piano player. They might be, I mean, might be, so on. And again, that's always kind of hit me, and those are things I remember, because now I look at it differently and such. I get with the players. I'm going, "Hey, what are your goals? What are your?" "Well, coach, I want to." When I was in high school, I want to play Division I basketball. And I said, "Well, this is what Division I's all about." And I kind of explained it to him, and I said, "Well, I mean, how are you still want to be a Division I player?" "Yeah, coach." And I said, "So you're going to allow me to coach you, with expectations of you being a Division I athlete?" But long before I'm out there hooting and hollering at someone, that is, never going to play basketball ever again, uh, you know, and I've done that. You got to know where to draw the line. You got to know where to, but I am incredibly still wanting to learn, incredibly still wanting to, I joke about it all the time here, and I started my career here, by the way. I went to school here and I coached here in 89 through 91. And I
What's
always
that
say,
like? What's that like coming back?
yeah, well, I enjoy it. We've always enjoyed Brownwood, first of all. And just the time we had at Howard Payne. And I knew Coach Dowley. Coach Dowley was a high school really good player back then when I was coaching here. So we've kind of stayed in contact over the years and such. And he was gracious enough to want me to come over and help. And there's still people around that were, I talked with the coach that I coached with today, ironically, and hadn't talked with him in a long time and such. But yeah, Howard Payne is a special place for us, my wife and I and our family and so on. But
I wanna jump in with
yeah,
what your wife said being, I think, just incredible, and a question that we gotta ask. You've mentioned this so much throughout our talk already about relationships and knowing what your players want and why they're there. 2 really quick stories, if you don't mind. I thought when I first started coaching that everybody wanted to play in college
right.
and everybody wanted to be a leader. I thought that. And so at Naaman Forest, I kept saying like, "Hey guys, this isn't going to work when you get to college. Like what you're doing right now, your effort level, how dynamic you're being, what your attitude, it's not going to work at the next level." And I don't even remember his name. He wore rec specs, and he was a senior. He finally stopped me one time. I was like, "Coach Saman, I don't want to play in college." And a 25-year-old, like, "Why are you doing this then? Like, what's the point? Why would you
Right.
even spend the time? Go do
Yeah.
something else." And that's what I thought. And so that was an important thing for me to learn is that not everybody wants to play in college. So, and the best player, you might remember Dalton Standish from
Yeah.
Grapevine Faith Christian
You
School,
bet.
435 made threes in 4 years, like 10, top 10 all time in Texas, never wanted to play college basketball.
That is
So we got to know what their aspirations are.
that.
And then I thought everybody coach wants to be a leader and wants to be a leader in the way, because I do believe that there's a leader in every locker, but they can lead in different ways.
Right.
But I thought everybody wanted to be the leader that breaks the team out, that holds the standards, that rips in and lights the team up when they got more in them. Like, I
Right.
thought everybody wanted that. And I'm at McKinney with Wes Watson, and I thought just we had this junior that was gonna be a really good player, and I thought he was gonna be our leader. I was declaring that he's our leader, and he missed an opportunity in my mind to lead one workout
Right.
during a workout. And this is there are any coaches that think like during the school day you should get players out of class to talk about basketball? Don't do that. Like,
Right.
this was a mistake. And I went to his class, found him. Can I talk to that player real quick? And came out and I told him about this. I just think I see so much in you, and I think you could have done this. And he starts breaking down in tears. And I'm
Mm.
looking around now like, oh no, what have I done? I said, "Are you okay?" He says, "I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a leader like that." I think there's going to be those players that, like you said, they just want to be a part of a team and they're going to fulfill that role their very, very best. And then there's going to be the few. And I think it is the few that
Yeah.
say, "Coach, yeah, I want that leadership role." And then I'll tell them, "Okay, well, then I'm going to give you everything. Like, I'm going to hold you accountable to what your aspirations are." And my last thing, and coach, I apologize for talking so
No, you're
much,
good.
but Chad Sanji at PGC, when I would direct and he was there, he would always ask the players, and I do think it's genius. He would say, after he found out had them write down what their goals or aspirations are, he would say, "Okay, raise your hand if I can hold you accountable to those." And they would raise their hands. And he would say, "I'm serious. Don't raise your hand if you don't want me to.
Yeah.
And I won't. I won't do that." And I think we have to know. And then once we do, hold them accountable. But then maybe it goes back to the grace and the balance that you talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a juggling act, and I think it's a maturity deal, and I just think it's, sitting under good people and just kinda learning and be willing to learn, about that. You'll never do that again. You'll never get a kid out of class, and you'll never you
So,
know
so
Yeah,
dumb.
yeah. It didn't seem dumb, to you at that point, but,
Oh,
you know
I had so much passion, and I thought,
Right.
I'm gonna show them how much I care. I
Yeah.
believe a lot of mistakes coach are made because coaches are trying to show them how much they care,
Yeah,
and
no,
they don't
I
realize that
agree
it's
I
the
agree with
wrong
that.
way.
I totally agree with that and such. The grace aspect, is something that I think is hard to explain, but, certain people show grace in different ways, guys I've coached with and just people and you'll say, "Well, shoot, why is he or she doing that or saying that?" And then maybe it comes weeks later and you're going, "Okay, case is maybe they worded it differently or maybe they didn't do exactly what you would have done." In hindsight, you're going, "Wow, that was well played." On their part and such. And I just think it comes down to, again, you got to love the kids,
Yeah.
and the reason that you have love for the kids is because you've been loved in the past and then, presently and so on. And, coaching is a calling. I've always felt that. I mean, I think Danny Hurley is a great coach. And I think he is a guy that barks a lot and so on and so forth, and some people might say, well, this, that, and the other, but he loves those kids. He shows it in a way that maybe we don't know, or some people might, kind of stray away from or whatever. So I don't judge people that bark at their kids or that or this, that, and the other. I just kind of look for, do they love the kids? And then you hear the kids, and you're sorry, man, you're of the age where you've got, players calling you and emailing you and texting you and saying, "Coach, you were right, man." And of course,
Coaching paychecks right there for
yeah,
sure.
and I'm at the age where I've got coaches that are coaches, and I'm recruiting kids, sons that play for, which is crazy. But, they always come back and say, I mean, "Coach, I love you, man. You were hard on us. You were this, that, and the other, but that's kinda helped me get through it this time," and so on. So, I just think that grace is out of love and so on, and the guys that don't love their kids, I just don't see them lasting very long in education today and so on. So, anyway, um
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.